the human ego, it's easier to crack because of the pain that it causes us. Because we live in a dimension where there's rules, there's laws. If we act too much a fool, we're going to have to pay a price, and it's going to cause us either mental, emotional, physical pain, or all the above. So then we learn we get humbled. Now, spiritual ego, this is a different beast, man. This can go on for lifetimes. What's spiritual ego? It can manifest in so many different ways. But it's this subtle, or sometimes gross level, but anything subtle, any defect of character or shortcoming or arrogance or ego, it can hide for a longer period of time because it's subtle. Especially if you're if you're manipulating people, if they're naive enough to believe in our nonsense under the guise of spirituality, then and give us praise and recognition, it can just keep going. But the spiritual ego, it's when there's a sense of identity that I know something, or that I'm right, or that I'm bringing the truth. I'm proclaiming what it really is. The rest of the people, they're wrong. There's people who actually, yeah, it's amazing. Just YouTubers, they think like Paramahansa Yogananda or Ramakrishna or Ramana Maharshi or any or one of my favorites, Anandamaya Ma. They look at them and think like they're deceiving themselves and others. I say, really? But you're bringing the truth? Well, yeah, I'm bringing the truth. This is deep spiritual ego, Messiah complex type consciousness, low-level consciousness. How do you break that? How do you suffer that? I mean, how do you suffer that to the point to where something checks that? And why does that happen? What's the point? Especially if you have a bunch of people who are naive enough to believe you. Maybe you can talk eloquent about spirituality, or you have some gift with articulating it, and so you can sound really good. So those who are very tuned, identified with on mind level, it can look like it makes a lot of sense, and then they believe, And so then you get energy from that, and you're like, yeah, I guess I am the Messiah. But you don't actually, that doesn't register. There's just a feeling like, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. You can know what you're talking, you can feel like you know what you're talking, like I feel like I know what I'm talking about right now, but I'm speaking spontaneous, and I know it's not for everybody. It's for whoever it's for. But I can feel that on a deeper level, man, I don't know what I'm saying. I can't figure, nobody has a monopoly on God or on this universe. There's no way. There's no figuring anything out. Let's try to define what enlightenment is or what true awakening is. There's no way, man. It's so vast. I had a friend tell me a long time ago, he says, anytime we're talking, we're lying. We're in the show, we're playing. There's so many variables and factors and angles and points that we're missing when we're trying to talk. A lot of people like to comment. They like to tell you what you're missing. I'm like, man, I could speak nonstop for 40 years and still be missing millions of things. Can't touch on everything. But there's certain archetypes that we belong to where there's some matching, and so when we hear somebody in our archetype speak, then it's something resonates, and it just, it's like your spirit who's playing in very limited, contracted form. That's the purpose for this dimension. It's something resonates. It's like I want to listen. It just feels good. Oh, but they're missing something. Okay, whatever. I like listening. Is there identity when we have experience with a certain subject, spirituality? Do we really think we know what's going on? Do we really think this is how it is? Like I said, it can be in the moment, it can feel that way. It can feel that way, but there's always, it doesn't, there's no absolute truth. Well, okay, the commandments. thou shalt not kill and not steal. Yeah, most of the time you can say, but there's exceptions. There's exceptions where you probably should steal or somebody might need to be killed. Are we flexible enough? When it gets right down to it, we have to be guided by inner sanction. There's no spiritual tabloids or scriptures or listening to, following directions of what somebody says that is actually, can be the antidote for a productive, fruitful life 100% of the time. That's like part of the game. That's part of that's an advanced stage where at some point we have to throw everything out and just live according to inner sanction for that moment. In one moment, the inner feeling can tell you to do one thing, but there could be another moment where it resembles that exact situation, but yet the inner feeling tells you to do the opposite. We don't know. There can be homeless people outside, and one you feel like giving to, and the other one you don't. You can't explain why. Then the mind comes in and wants to like comment. It wants to give its analysis on inner feeling. It's like a kid trying to give analysis on what a surgeon or rocket scientist is saying. He's not qualified. The kid's not qualified. The mind's not qualified to comment on something that's higher than the mind. This is the brain damage that occurs in a lot of people. Because there's this game between listening to our inner sanction and listening to thought or mind. Mind has its purpose, its point. If I'm buying an airplane ticket or doing something, I need practical mind. Intuition's really not gonna, it doesn't serve that purpose. But when it comes to contemplating existential things and talking about infinite truths, yeah, inner feeling has to be the guide. But I would say that's the main culprit for the spiritual ego, is that it thinks it knows something. And then it gets offended. It gets offended. It'll look at somebody else and they're saying something. And maybe that person who's saying something is getting more recognition than this person who thinks they know something. And then they get like jealous, but they don't call it that. They don't get in touch and admit that their own human flaws. This is higher level if you do that. Instead, they say, God, like everybody's so stupid. They're believing stupid people talk as opposed to somebody who's like really speaking the truth. Or you can apply that to religious beliefs also. If you don't believe in this religion, this is the only way. This is like the only way. And if you don't believe that, you're somehow misguided. And God purposely created, he diversified his show on such extreme level, man, that like everything's for everybody. Like the Satan worshipers, they have their own little thing. They have to experience that for a while and see how that goes, you know. Maybe they'll let that go and then they'll find something else. But for them, for that moment, that's what they need. They don't need what we would call so-called truth, or with some, you know, spirituality or something. People would say, yeah, but the spirituality is more true. The devil worshiping is like debaucherous and not true. So like they shouldn't do that. What do you mean they shouldn't do that? That's what they're doing. That's what they need to do. Like, we all got to do what we got to do. It's like I started out in Church of Religious Science when I was in my early 20s. I liked it because it just wasn't so, well, I was going to say dogmatic. It's dogmatic in its own way. Everything's dogmatic. But it wasn't like you're going to go to hell and burn forever if you don't like believe a certain thing. Like that was just too extreme and nonsensical for me. But with the Church of Religious Science, it was a little more open, or like unity churches and stuff. So at that particular time, that was for me. If I wasn't ready for some of the heavyweights like Yogananda or Anandamaya Ma at the time, I wasn't ready. I needed something more practical level, more earthbound level. You know, I think that's why people get into the manifestation, and you can manifest whatever you want, or you can reprogram your subconscious mind because it's more hands-on. It has more to do with the human level of things, which is where most people, they're identified with. They need to feel like they're doing something. If you talk about surrendering and letting go of yourself to let a greater power work through you, it means nothing. Like, That's not the stage they're in. So therefore, that's my point. Like, do we judge that and think like, oh, they're misled. They should be here, but they're there. That's spiritual ego. Well, it's one aspect, but that can go on and on and on and on, you know. Do I think I'm higher than somebody? The problem is, do I even believe in this puppet show called Yash? That's where it all starts. Do I believe in this thing that's sitting here talking and that's going through the evolutionary journey? Yeah, to a certain degree, this has practical reality. Because if I do my own test and hit myself with a hammer, it's going to feel like I really feel it. Because the nervous system, the consciousness has adapted the nervous system, and the nervous system's plugged in to these bodies, and so everything, it's a high-tech virtual reality game. So that needs to be honored to a certain degree. But deeper than that, then you get non-dual. You realize, like, wait a minute though, this is still a temporary cosmic show, that there's a Yash in a body, that the consciousness is in these bodies, like, acting. That really doesn't exist. Yeah, we need to remember both. That is true, that this is just an appearance, but also it's true that this appearance needs to be cooperated with, because we signed up for it. So the spiritual ego starts when I really believe in this identity of this puppet, this cosmic puppet, Yash. Once that starts, then I have to take the whole package. I know what I'm talking about, you don't know what you're talking about, and there's higher, there's lower, in that whole game. So how do you honor that game? Because you can't just pretend it don't exist. It does. It's relative. How do you cooperate with that, but at the same time recognize and remember, like, wait, this is still all a big show. In deep sleep, there's no me or you or thinking about higher and lower and nothing else. Why not give some attention to that reality? Because then that will give balance. So on practical level, yeah, there's different levels of evolution for sure. But can we know that that's still game? That's still part of the game. If you know that's part of the game, you don't really think about higher or lower. I mean, you see it, you recognize it. It's not too hard to recognize. You know, some people, they just graduated from the animal kingdom and they're behaving like that versus a more seasoned entity that's lived more than one life here. It's pretty easy to see that difference on relative level, but at the same time recognize, wait a minute, in deep sleep we're the same. There has to be that fusion of understanding between both aspects, because then that gives balance. So the spiritual ego can just, like I said, it can go on that's the last part of the ego that dies. Actually, and it never dies totally. God has to always keep a little tension there so that we don't get too complacent. It can always pop up sometime. It's okay, whatever. We have to maintain some provisional sense of an ego so that we even exist. That has to also be understood. So then we don't fall into the trap of thinking there's some flag post awakening and final thing, and now I'm awake. No. Even you know, it's said in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, if you remain in it for 20 days or 30 days, depends on who's talking about it, that you'll just disappear and dematerialize. Okay, yeah, but you still might come back. You might want to come back. Your higher self might bring you back to a certain plane of existence to help others. Well, now you're back, there's the risk again of ego coming up. Anytime we assume a form, we have to play that game. That's the tax of getting to have experience, is that there's duality. There's ego and then there's pure self, you could say. So there has to be that tension to where we can use our volition and discerning powers to keep our attention more on the truth of existence, which is permanent and doesn't change, which is our true self, versus this temporary changing, just imbalanced puppet form of a self, individual self. It's fine. It's like worth it. Where you just want to like just be nothing, just nothing, and you don't know that you're nothing. You need to appear to be something to realize you're nothing. So I hope I said something. Remember though, I don't know what I'm saying or if it's true or I don't think about it. That's why I don't really argue about it. No, what you said wasn't true. Okay, it's not true. No, what you said really is true. Okay, that's cool. It's true. Like, who cares? In the end, like, what difference does it make? I'm not even choosing to come make the videos, and you're not choosing to listen either. It looks like we are, but we're not. All right, I'm gonna get out of this sun, even though I'm in the shade. It's duality. God made the sun. I'm grateful for the sun, but then if it gets too hot, I need the shade. But then if there's too much shade, then you get. Okay, I'll see.